I'm Lousje Skala. I live in Melbourne, where I practice as an art jeweller. I'm a Dutch Australian, and I think that's a nice link to make with contemporary jewellery or art jewellery, because art jewellery has a very strong base in Holland. My undergrad studies were at RMIT University, and more recently postgrad studies were at Monash University, where I had the privilege of studying with the very gifted and very generous Marion Hosking. I started making jewellery in the late 70s, and then there was actually a lull between my making time during the time after studying and then coming back to making. I remained a very conscientious collector. So it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago that I started making again. The technology behind my pieces is really interesting because I wanted to use a reflective surface. I had to find a material that was lightweight. I didn't want to use traditional metal, even though I have traditional silversmith training. It's far too heavy and uncomfortable to wear. So I had to go on a big investigative, search, and I found this man-made material that carves beautifully and chromes beautifully, and it's known as ABS. Now, one of the nicest ways of using it is through computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing. So this was a whole new journey that I had to embark on. Having trained traditionally as a silversmith to then start to use the computer was a wonderful journey of discovery. And so I had to start to learn to draw with a mouse and not a pencil. And it's an exciting thing to be doing in this day and age, because this is technology of our time. And so it's wonderful to be part of our time, just like art jewellery sits very much within a contemporary time frame. I think one of the great pleasures as a maker of art jewellery is the connection it creates between the wearer and the viewer. And this can be subtle, this can be overt. The works that I make, I use the reflective surface as both metaphor and material. And I really don't leave very much to chance. When you're wearing one of my works, they're large and they're often shiny. And so an observer is naturally attracted to them. And what I'm fascinated by is the dialogue that transcends between wearer and maker. And then, of course, I'm also part of that wonderful triangle, but in a much more subtle way. Communication is a really important element for me within my work. It comes, I guess, through the fact that I'm actually profoundly deaf. And after I lost all of my hearing, I took on a whole different value for the spoken language, because in the modern world, we don't respect it in quite the same way as we use our wonderful digital devices more frequently, and we use a different kind of lexicon to express ourselves. I started to appreciate a very different kind of sense about how we communicate. So I think when two people connect through art jewellery, something very, very special happens.